Welcome to Lizards of the Toast. I've been away a little while, but I have been messing with all of the decks, and I've got a couple of new ones on the way. One should be up in about a week, and you guys are going to love it. I'm bringing one of my favorite, you guys remember Schrodinger's cat? Well, it's like that. But right now, we're talking about mono black 8-rack scam, buddies. And this deck has struggled, and I think I've found why. And we are just going to do a deck reveal, and I'm going to do the deck explanation as we go through. And try to make it quick and concise. That's what somebody told me in an email. They said, you need to make your videos more quick and concise. So I'm going to do that. And without further ado, let's talk about our creature base. We have Turok the Dreadcanter, which is always in the deck. Almost always, 90% of the time now. It's got that kicker cost. Pay 2 black, so it's 4 and 3 black. It's got protection from white. That's pretty dang good. Whenever an opponent discards a card, put a 1/1 counter on Turok Dreadcanter. When Turok Dreadcanter enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, target opponent discards 2 cards at random. So if we kick it, it's going to be a 4/3. And we're going to have our opponents, because this is an 8-rack discard deck, we're going to have our opponents discarding left and right, and even up and down. So they're going to be discarding east, west, north, and south, as it were. And we're running 2 Turoks, like I said, always 2. And here is a gem in the deck, as always, the Douthie. I'm just kidding. It's Douthie, I think. Douthie Voidwalker. I know that's how it's pronounced. But we're running 4. We tried it with 3. And you know what? No. So we have 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 beautiful Douthies. And look at that one. That's a little different than the other ones. But running 4 of these, it's got Shadow, so it's going to guarantee us a hit with 3. So if a card we put into an opponent's graveyard, which tons are going to be, it's instead exiled with a void counter. We can tap and sacrifice the Douthie and choose an exiled card an opponent owns with a void counter on it. You may play it this turn without paying its mana cost. Let's think about the importance of that real quick. So against a burn deck, that's really good. Plus, this also gives us a way to bring this back if we have a kind of sitting dead in our hand, one of our 5 undying spells. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 just feels so good to me with Douthie. All right, now here's another one. I tried this with 1 and I tried it with 2. She's our win condition to a degree because she, Shelly the Apocalypse, little Shelly here, is a win condition in and of herself, because if our opponent wants to get too funny and draw cards, they lose 2 life. So this is going to do its thing just when you need it to. So if your opponent on their turn plays a Necro Dominance, you can actually, on your turn then, respond with a Shelly of your own. And that will just punish the heck out of that. So, and we'll talk about the sideboard later on in regards to that, because Shelly is a bad card to go against the Necro decks. But we're not scared of Necro. That's what made us change this up. And as we're testing it out, it's getting better and better. So Grief, yes. If it's not banned, we're going to play it. That's just the way it is. 1, 2, 3, 4 Grief. So this rounds up the creature base, as it were. Grief is a free spell. We just have to exile a black card from our hand. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand, and if we hit it with an undying spell, you know what happens. We scam it back, and it goes boop, boop, and we get to take 2 things away. So, why do I say that I don't fear the Necro Dominance, not Necropotence. Necropotence Light. Am I right? Necropotence Light. I kind of like the ring to that. Anyways, Necro Dominance. Yes, I am full faith that I've been just scamming the heck out of Necro Dominance. And once you get 1 in the graveyard with cards like Surgical Extraction, you can remove those from the game. So that is nice. So that's the first of our instants. And the instants, pretty much, I'd say, are about what you would expect in a black mid-range control deck. Got the 1 surgical extraction, so that's our free and or 1 black and or 2 life. We have Not Dead After All, which, as I said, this is an instant we have in hand. If somebody tries to do some shenanigans that involve killing a key creature we have out, we can hit it with this Not Just a Scam. So this deck is made to not just scam. The Dothy Voidwalker plays a bigger role in this than any variation of the scam rack I've ever made. And I love it. And just to hold up the show, I bet you guys are like, where's the Bowmaster? Well, it is my theory that the Bowmaster is not good in this deck anymore. I really don't think it is. And the reason being, I think it doesn't do anything for what we're trying to do with this deck, for one. I really don't think it does. I think the Bowmaster is a great card, but I don't think it's great for what we're doing here. In fact, I think it cost me to lose a lot of games and maybe like question the power of this archetype that I've been working on so long. And that's why Bowmasters is no longer... We're going to see Bowmasters again, friends. They're not gone from the channel. We will see them again in a few days because we have new work for our wonderful Bowmasters, but not in this deck right now. So, that being said, let's move along. We got 4 Not Dead After Alls, and 2 of them are foily. Isn't that nice? And we have the Undying Evil. Why do I have Undying Evil besides Malakir Rebirth? Because we're running more lands in this deck. We don't want that slow land. If we need it, we don't want Malakir Rebirth. We don't want to give more life than we have to. That was also, we'll get into that as well. Undying Evil, pretty much the same thing, and I sure like that very much Evil Dead vibe there. So, let's talk about Fatal Push. We're just having 2 in the main deck. So 2 Fatal Push, destroy target creature if it has converted mana cost 2 or less. Destroy that creature if it has converted mana cost 4 or less instead if a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn. Honestly, we're not having so many permanents of our own leave the battlefield. So that's why there's only 2 Fatal Push here. Just because that revolt cost is important and I want to utilize it best. And I think that getting rid of mana cost 2 creatures is pretty good in and of itself, but I don't think that this deck is now situated to make the best out of that revolt. Now, Thoughtseize, on the other hand, now this is a worthy payment of 2 life. So 2 life, target player reveals his or her hand. You choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card. And we are running 4 Thoughtseize, of course. Now here's where it gets a little stiff. All right, we got Inqui of Kazi. So Inqui of Kazi, we are running 3, and we have that nice full art one. So we have 3 of these. Target player reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it with mana value 3 or less. That's a lot of these new Modern Horizons 3 cards, right? 3 or less mana, powerful things, new archetypes. So that is a good number. And it made, I think Modern Horizons 3 made this card a lot better, to be honest. So until Necrodominance is banned, and until Nadu is banned, we got to hit hard with this archetype and be emptying hands very quickly. And this is certainly going to hit a lot of our targets. So 3 of those. Now here we go. Oh, I got you. You didn't realize it was a Pox Scam rack, did you? Well, yep, it is. We got 2 in the main deck. 2 smallpox. Each player loses a life, discards a card, sacrifices a creature, then sacrifices a land. This is going to really hurt our opponent's early game. If we use this wisely, very wisely, this can be our best friend instead of being a nightmare. And I think 2 is just the number we want in here. I'm going to drink a coffee, friends. It's my turmeric genius coffee. Ooh, I feel smarter already, friends. All right, so where were we? Take away a few things in a rebellion man suit. Take away everything and the oppression will be accepted as fate. So smallpox, 2 in the main deck. We have this beautiful foiled wrench mind here. Ooh, target player discards 2 cards from his or her hand unless he or she discards an artifact card from his or her hand. And let's get into this. You guys like this? You see this? You see what that is? That's kind of weird. It's Lava Spur Boots. Now there's just one of these in here. This is because this is a toolbox we have. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 and has haste in Ward 1. Its equip cost is 1. So if we're not feeling that we are emptying out our opponent's hand to utilize the rack, one of our big creatures would certainly like a fancy pair of boots like that. I mean, who wouldn't? Look at those. They glow. You can actually see the ground if you're hiking in the evening time. So any of our creatures would like that. If we could put those on Shelly, that is going to be a lot of fun. So we can search it up with Urza's Saga. Its equip cost is 1. So we can play it, equip it. Very cool. Giving a creature haste when we play it is really good. So say we have the mana, our turn we play Lava Spur Boots. Our opponent does something, and our turn we can scam out Grief. Maybe we sacrificed a Doothy Voidwalker and then scammed it back. Whatever, maybe we have something. Shelly needs some boots to wear. We can give that haste so we can just move right along, as it were. But just one of those in there, just one. I think a couple might be good, but we have Pitting Needle enters the battlefield. Choose a card name, a fetch land. Generally is what we're going to want to do with this. We have Shadow Spear. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has trample and lifelink. Pay 1, permanents your opponent's control. Lose hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. The equip cost is 2. And this is a really great one if we can get it on a bigger creature, because getting 5 life, depending on what we have on it, that's pretty dang good. So look at that, 1. So we have 2 racks to go with those. Okay, the rack. I'm sure I don't need to give an introduction to the rack, but enters the battlefield, choose an opponent. That guy over there with the funny eye. At the beginning of the chosen player's upkeep, the rack deals X damage to that player, where X is 3 minus the number of cards in his or her hand. So basically, if we have that in hand, rack deals 1 damage. If we have those many cards in hand, it deals 2 damage. And if our opponent's all out of cards and they have nothing in their hand, the rack deals 3 damage before their draw step. So that's very important. If you haven't played the rack and you're a new player and you're playing with some new friend that doesn't know how to play either, just remember the rack does the damage before they draw their cards. So if they don't have cards in hand, the rack does 3 damage. I had somebody try to squeak by that. I was like, friend, no, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I was very surprised. Anyways, we have Nihil, like nihilism, I guess. Right, yeah, sacrifice Nihilism, Spellbomb, exile all cards from target player's graveyard. When Nihilism? That's a funny word. I've always found that word to be funny. Nihilism. Oh well. Put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may pay 1 black if you do draw a card. So we can get it. It's 1 mana. Tap it, sacrifice it, exile all those cards, and then we can pay that 1. So basically, it's 1 to play, tap, sacrifice, get rid of a problematic graveyard or a problematic thing that's bouncing from a graveyard. That's important to think about too. So getting that out and having it sit and then being able to tap it, sacrifice it, and deal with something problematic is really good for us. And being able to Urza Saga toolbox, it's really good too. We have Lily of the Veil and this nice old one right here. I believe, this is like the first, maybe not the first, I think this was the first printing of Liliana of the Veil. So for 1 and 2 black, we get +1. Each player discards a card. -2, target player sacrifices a creature. She's a tough outfit in her own, you know what I mean? And then if we -6, separate all permanents target player controls into 2 piles, that player sacrifices all permanents in the pile of his or her choice. Yeah. We're running 3 Lily of the Veil. All right. So now let's talk about our mana base. We have Mishra Factory. So for 1, Mishra's Factory becomes a 2/2 assembly worker artifact creature until end of turn. It's still a land. We can tap target assembly worker creature, gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So how does this work? What we do, we play our Mishra's Factory, pay the 1, don't pay with Mishra's Factory, but with our other mana that we have available, we pay it, make Mishra's Factory the 2/2. We declare it as a blocker. Okay. So declare as a blocker. And tap it to get its +1/+1, and we get a 3/3 blocker. And you wouldn't believe how many times I get by where somebody's attacking with something that they don't realize that when I bring this assembly worker out, they're like, oh, you're going to get rid of your land? You have Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth. It's a swamp too. You're just going to swing in, and then they don't think about it. But yeah, if we declare it as a blocker and tap it, +3/+3 until end of turn. Or I'm sorry, it's a 3/3 until end of turn because it's been declared as a blocker. So we tap it to get its +2/+2 because it is an artifact. 2 of those. I wish we could run 3 sometimes, but we just can't afford it. We just can't do it. So we have Lockthwain. Lockthwain, you got to lock up the bar tonight. Hey, Lockthwain, you got to be checking more people's ID. Why do I think Lockthwain sounds like the name of somebody that would be a bouncer at a bar? I don't know, but old hands at the channel know. I cannot play Lockthwain without having this. 1 Lockthwain. So here is the Golden Pig. We have Urza's Saga. Enters the battlefield, add 1 colorless. So that colorless mana is going to be useful to us. A little bit. It's about as useful as a cherry is to a sundae. But, okay, our second part of the saga, of course, you can add the thing. You can pay 2 and tap this and create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token where this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact we control. And with our toolbox we're running, it's usually going to be a pretty good number. Plus, it will also get bumped up if we turn our Mishra's Factory into an artifact creature. Which will also help if we have our artifact construct creature up as a blocker. So, search your library for an artifact card. That's the third way to resolve this. And always remember to leech your mana out of here before you do that. Get your mana. Even though it's 1 colorless, get that mana. And you can even pay 2 and create the construct as well. So, always make sure you get that mana before you sack this and, do your thing. Get it off the battlefield. So get an artifact card with 0 or 1. Now, I don't believe we have 0 artifact mana because we don't run Chalice in here anymore. But we have a lot of 1 mana artifacts that we can get. And we can pull a lot out of our sideboard as like a toolbox artifact box. So this is great. So we're definitely running 4 Urza's Sagas. Now, because we're running 4, we run 4 of the legendary land Term of Bergberg. I am sorry. Anyways, very early in the morning. The Dead Marshes. I like the artwork on this one. Little lights for the elves. Ooh. Each land is a swamp in addition to its other land types, so that means that all of our colorless producers are also producing black. And we really do need a lot of black in this deck. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I tried it with 3. You guys have seen me get stuck with a bunch of those in my hand, and playing for about a week with 3, I was like, oh, I can't get my double black when I need it sometimes. So let's look at this real quick. This is pretty neat. So, a lot of the reason I was having trouble in that deck was the fetch lands. I don't necessarily believe the fetch lands are that necessary in this archetype as they are in a different version of Scam. So, a different version of Mono Black Scam, like not running Rack or Mono Black mid-range, I think the fetch lands are great. In fact, the next deck we're going to be showcasing later in the week uses a lot of fetch lands. And a lot of them are black grabbing fetch lands, just to give you a hint. So, in this, we have basic lands. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 10 basic lands. So we're going to get our black out. We are not scared of Blood Moon. Blood Moon's back, baby! And we're not scared of that. So, these lands, I think 21's a good number. Anyways, we don't want to be hurt by them. Not that we need to necessarily fetch, but when we did fetch a land, even though we were always fetching just a swamp, I felt like that one little ping was just enough to sometimes be a game ender. And unless you have an Urborg, you're going to want to fetch up a swamp. And I'd get hands where I'd have 2 fetch lands in my opening hand. I'd immediately have to ping myself. Plus, you're emptying your hand because it's a scam deck anyways. So you're going to be playing your Undying spell. It's just, yeah, I really think I've been doing so good with this. I just can't wait to get some games on video. I'm hoping to get somebody over here with some new Eldrazi Gruul decks, but they're a little camera shy. So we have Break the Ice. It's 2 black. Destroy target land that is snow or could produce colorless. Void lands. Overload is 4 and 2 black. We can definitely hit Urza's Saga with this if somebody else is playing that shenanigan. So we have 2 of those. Now here we have another smallpox. Why is that there? If we try to... Maybe we're going up against something where some creatures can come out of the deck, okay? Not Torok, mind you. But maybe a Duthi, maybe a Shelly. And we are just going to try to like hit up and destroy our opponents and demoralize them. That's why we have this 3rd smallpox here. So Break the Ice, for instance, that is going to be against mirror matches, decks that are wanting to run colorless producing lands like Urza's Saga. This extra smallpox, like I said, if we're going to be sideboarding that, some creatures are going to come out. We're going to be sideboarding Damnation then and putting it into our deck. So destroy all creatures that can't be regenerated. We'll probably throw this Surgical Extraction in there just to be more cruel, or would it be crueler like the donut? To be more cruel to our opponent or to be crueler to our opponent? I like crueler. To be French crueler to our opponent. We will put this in there, then that will help us further empty their decks of problematic cards, like Lightning Bolt or Lightning Helix. Could be removed from a burn deck, which is very nice. Here we have a one of the Null Elemental Blast. Choose one. Counter target multicolored spell or destroy target multicolored permanent. So if somebody works very hard to get Flage out, I wanted to run 2 of these, but just the one, I got it a couple times, and I've already gotten rid of Flage a couple times. So I like it. You can counter the spell. You can pull it out of your deck, and it's really great just on the draw. So we'd sideboard that, you know, and kind of create a toolbox. We add our 2 Sheoldred's Edicts. Each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. Each opponent sacrifices a creature token. Each opponent sacrifices a Planeswalker. So choosing one of those, that's pretty powerful, because sacrifice is very powerful. Really gets around a lot of things. Now, right here, spells and abilities your opponents control can't cause their controller to search their library. Target player puts the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard. So Ashiok's Rending Dreams and Breaking Hearts. Or is he breaking dreams and rending hearts? I don't know. What's on his mind? Nothing. There's nothing there. So, anyways, this is good for us, though, because spells and abilities your opponents control can't cause their controller to search their library. And that is really rude, but it also is necessary. We have Hex Parasite. So we pay X black or X pain. X life, and remove up to X counters from target permanent. For each counter removed this way, Hex Parasite gets +X +0 until end of turn. It can't be zero, but it can be paid with either 1 black or 2 life. So whatever we pay there, we can mix it, we can match it, we can put some blood on it, we can send it the way, but very good. Drawn by power, fueled by conquest. It's a Hex Parasite. Always choose a Hex Parasite. Another Pithing Needle. As Pithing Needle enters the battlefield, choose a card name. Activated abilities of sources with the chosen name can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. And I'm sure we can certainly think of a lot of things that we'd like to hit with this. So, Also, that 1 mana, we can put this in there. We have an extra. So we can find this on a better chance with our Urza Saga if we need it. But we'll have 2 in the main deck if we need to be. And Soul Guide Lantern. When Soul Guide Lantern enters the battlefield, exile target card from a graveyard. Tap, sacrifice Soul Guide Lantern, exile target opponent's graveyard. We can pay 1, tap, sacrifice Soul Guide Lantern, draw a card. Nothing wrong there. So that's the last of our 1-mana artifacts that Urza's Saga can get. But here's where it gets really funny. So if we're going real control heavy and we're removing some creatures and just wanting to empty our opponent's hands, we're going to add this Damping Spear. If the land is tapped for 2 or more mana, it produces colorless instead of any other type and amount. Each spell a player casts costs 1 more to cast for each other spell that players cast this turn. Very mean. 1, a 2. But for our third spot, which would be another Damping Spear, we have added this Winter Moon. Players can't untap more than 1 non-basic land during their untap step. And we don't have many of those. I believe we have 7. So, with the amount of black mana we're going to have anyways, using this wisely won't be a problem. Oh, there's our constructs. So there is the deck, and we will be updating. It's doing very well, I will say that. I feel like it plays fair. I feel like it's not as horrendous to play against as like the current metagame. You know, I was going to actually move away from the scam thing, but after seeing the Necro Dominance decks and stuff, I'm like, you know what? We're going to stick with it. We love the rack, and we're not going to give up on it. But as food for thought here, here's some sideboard cards that you may find interesting. I just grabbed them up out of... Actually, I always have floating a little thing of... There's probably a lot of money in here, to be honest. But it's a little box of cards that I just keep because they're really good modern cards. And I don't necessarily tend to keep ones that are that good sometimes. But some of them have served me well, and I've had some very valuable cards. But I did some speculation buys on some Bloodthirst here. That wasn't so good. But this would be one you could put a couple in the sideboard because of those 2-mana Planeswalkers. Bloodchief's Thirst would be very good. And then Infernal Reckoning, a couple of these could go in there. It's some life gain. If somebody tries to drop an Eldrazi-tron, you can go ahead and exile that target colorless creature and gain that life. And then you've pretty much closed out the game. Cursed Totem, that'd be a great one. Unfortunately, it's 2 mana to get it out there, so you have to run like 3 of them, I'd recommend. 3. If you really want to get something in your hand every game, you want to run at least 3. That's my belief. Activated abilities of creatures can't be activated for the sake of time. Just think about that for a second and think about in your own game